Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to Right Side Broadcasting Network. I'm Alyssa Ashe, and I'm super excited to bring you tonight's nightly news recap. So stay tuned for a variety of news in the political sphere, world, business, economics, and all kinds of things. It's been so great seeing you guys getting ready in the chat room, just super excited. And first, I'm going to start with a big story that I'm sure you have already heard about, just some increased tensions between the U.S. and Iran. So the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, actually said on Sunday that America must understand well that peace with Iran is the mother of all peace and war with Iran is the mother of all wars. And he also warned President Trump to stop playing with the lion's tail and threatening Iran, or else you will regret it. So Iranian lawmaker Heshmatullah Falahashif told the Associated Press that he doubted it would come to a military confrontation between Iran and the United States despite the escalating rhetoric. And he also said that President Trump and his Iranian counterpart, Rouhani, expressed themselves through speeches since diplomatic channels are closed, as the two countries have had no diplomatic relations since 1979. And this is from timesofisrael.com. So also on Monday, Iran's state-owned news agency dismissed President Trump's warning tweet to Rouhani, describing it as a passive reaction. And I will show you guys that tweet as well. A very strong tweet that the president made today in all capital letters. Let me switch over to that real quick. I'm sure you have heard about it or seen it in the news already today. So he said to Iranian President Rouhani, "Never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer the consequences, the likes of which few throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious." And then you can see here is a picture of President Rouhani. So I'm going to keep that up for a second as I go through everything. So that Iranian lawmaker, Heshmatullah Falahashif, he also said that unlike North Korea, Iran had never moved toward a nuclear bomb, and therefore Iran is angry since Trump responded to Tehran's engagement diplomacy by pulling the U.S. out of the nuclear deal. And also Monday, Iran's state-owned news agency dismissed Trump's warning tweet to Rouhani, describing it as a passive action. And the IRNA news agency, which is a government mouthpiece, also said that President Trump's Twitter missive was only mimicking and copying Iranian Foreign Minister Mohammad Javad Zarif, who had in the past warned the West to never threaten an Iranian. And Trump earlier this year pulled the U.S. out of the international deal, as you all know, meant to prevent Tehran from developing a nuclear weapon, and ordered increased American sanctions. And we just got a $5 donation from CNN. Thank you very much for that. And President Trump also has suggested that Iranian leaders are going to call me and say, let's make a deal, but Iran has rejected talks. And Rouhani has previously lashed out against Trump for threatening to reimpose the sanctions, as well as moving the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem and banning travel to the U.S. from certain Muslim-majority countries. Now, President Trump, as you know, has had a history of firing off heated tweets that seem to quickly escalate long-standing disputes with leaders of nations at odds with the U.S. Switching back Sorry about that, guys. Did not mean for that to play again. But anyways, in the case of North Korea, the public war of words was cooled quickly and gradually led to high-profile summit and denuclearization talks. And on Sunday in California, U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo was strongly critical of Iran. He called the religious leaders of Iran hypocritical holy men who amassed vast sums of wealth while allowing their people to suffer, part of a highly critical broadside issued as the Republic approached the 40th anniversary of its Islamic Revolution and the U.S. prepared to reimpose the economic sanctions. And Pompeo also talked about increasing the media outreach to the Iranian people. And he said the U.S. Broadcasting Board of Governors is taking new steps to help Iranians get around internet censorship and is launching a new 24/7 Farsi language channel across television, radio, digital, and social media formats so that ordinary Iranians inside Iran and around the globe can know America stands with them. Now, in the speech at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Library and Museum, Pompeo castigated Iran's political, judicial, and military leaders as well, accusing several by name of participating in widespread corruption. And he also said the government has heartlessly repressed its own people's human rights, dignity, and fundamental freedoms. And he said despite poor treatment by their leaders, the proud Iranian people are not staying silent about their government's many abuses. And the United States under President Trump will not stay silent either. In light of these protests and after 40 years of regime tyranny, I have a message for the people of Iran. The United States hears you, the United States supports you, and the United States is with you. So just kind of some mixed messages there from Secretary of State Mike Pompeo and, President Trump as well. But hopefully tensions will die down a little bit and they can maybe even have calmer discussions. And also, if you guys have any comments or questions about what I'm discussing as well tonight, any of these news stories, or if there are any news stories you notice that I may have missed that happened today, please send them to me on Twitter. And I will show you my Twitter handle right here. Is at Alyssa RSBN. Super simple, easy to remember. I'll leave that up for a second in case you want to direct message me on Twitter with a story tip, with a news tip, or with a question. And yes, I see your question, Watchman 117, asking if I am doing a report on Hollywood pedophiles tonight at 9 p.m. Central Time, 10 p.m. Eastern, excuse me. Yes, I am. So please stay tuned for that. It's going to be very interesting, kind of more, just investigative journalism, something that we haven't done too much of recently, but it is going to be very interesting. So please stay tuned for that after this stream. And thank you for reminding me, Watchman 117. And let's see, I see your comment, Brighton Cherrier. Please search Trump poised to take control of the Federal Reserve. Huge news. I will definitely search that, Brighton. Thank you so much for sharing that with me. Okay, since you mentioned that, I will take a break from the Iran story and talk about this for a minute. So, this is from CNBC, and it is by Dick Bove, titled "Trump Poised to Take Control of the Federal Reserve." So President Trump has many reasons as to why he should take control of the Federal Reserve. He will do so both because he can and because his broader policies argue that he should do so. The president is anti-overregulating American industry, and the Fed is a leader in pushing stringent regulation on the nation. Now, by raising interest rates and stopping the growth in the money supply, it stands in the way of further growth in the American economy. So it gives a couple of reasons why he would do this. So first of all, it says because he can. The Board of Governors of the Federal Reserve is required to have 7 members. It has 3. 2 of the current governors were put into their position by President Trump. 2 more have been nominated by the president and are awaiting confirmation by the Senate. After these 2 are put on the Fed's board, the president will then nominate 2 more to follow them. In essence, it's possible that 6 of the 7 board members will be put in place by Trump. And the Federal Open Market Committee has 12 members and sets the nation's monetary policy. 7 of the 12 are members of the Board of Governors, and 5 are Federal Reserve District Bank presidents. Other than the head of the Fed Bank in New York, who is nominated by the president, the other 4 can only take their positions as district bank presidents if the board in Washington agrees to their hiring. One of these, the Fed Bank president in Minneapolis, Neil Kashkari, is already arguing for no further rate increases. So the second reason why he would do this would be regulation. So following the passage of the Dodd-Frank Act in July 2010, the Fed was given enormous power to regulate the banking industry, and it moved quickly to implement a number of new rules. The Fed set up a system that would penalize banks that failed to obey its new rules. And also a note from Brighton Charrier, I am going to save that real quick for the next broadcast. Thank you for your tip. So like I said, these rules included setting limits as to how big an individual bank could be, how much money the banks had to invest in federal funds and treasuries as a % of their assets, which loans were desirable and which were not, where the banks had to obtain their funding, and many, many more, up to and including how much a bank could pay its investors on dividends. And these rules have meaningfully slowed bank investments in the economy, and they have had a crippling effect on bank lending in the housing markets, and other agencies have had an impact here as well. So hold on, bear with me one second, just switching my pages up a little bit so I can kind of give you a better view here. Also, hello to everyone watching on Facebook, Periscope, and Twitter as well. So glad to have you guys here, and I will be checking your comments soon throughout the night as well. So these rules have meaningfully slowed bank investments in the economy, which is the Volcker rule, and they have had a crippling effect on the bank lending in the housing markets, and other agencies have had an impact here also. So all of the government agencies in the Fed have possibly been the most restrictive, and the president has already moved to correct these excesses by putting in place a new Fed governor, Randall Quarles, to regulate the banking industry. So the third reason is just killing economic growth. So in the second quarter of 2018, the growth in non-seasonally adjusted money supply has been 0. So the money supply didn't grow at all, and this is because the Fed is actually shrinking its balance sheet ultimately by $50 billion per month. And in addition, the Fed has raised interest 7 times since Q4 in 2015, and supposedly there are 5 more rate increases coming. And this is the tightest monetary policy since Paul Volcker headed the institution in the mid-1980s. And it will be recalled his policies led to back-to-back recessions. So current Fed monetary policy is directly in conflict with the president's economic goals. Moreover, the Treasury is estimating that it will pay $415 billion in interest on the federal debt in this fiscal year. A better estimate might be that $450 billion if rates keep going up. Now, there are a lot of bridges and jobs that could be created with this money. So then, if there's inflation, it's likely to rise if the Fed eases its policies. If that happens, paying down the federal debt becomes easier. And on a less desirable note, higher interest rates lower real estate values, and lower rates that stimulate inflation increase real estate values. And the bottom line is that the president can and possibly may take control of the Fed, and it may be recalled when the law was written creating the Federal Reserve, the Secretary of the Treasury was designated as the head of the Federal Reserve, and we are going to return to that era. So that is possible, and that is all from CNBC. So thank you so much. I believe it was Watchman 1117 that gave me that tip and told me to check out that story. Thank you very much for letting me know. Really appreciate it. And I have a little bit more information for you guys about Iran and the increased tensions between Iran and the United States. So as you know, relations between Washington and Tehran have soared even further as after President Trump unleashed his Twitter message intended for Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. And this is from the Independent News. And like I said, I showed you guys this tweet earlier. It said, "Never ever threaten the United States again, or you will suffer consequences the likes of which throughout history have ever suffered before. We are no longer a country that will stand for your demented words of violence and death. Be cautious." And then President Trump's remarks came after a speech from his Iranian counterpart who warned that America must understand well that peace with Iran is the mother of all peace and war with Iran is the mother of all wars. So the war of words it just marked the escalation in the hostile rhetoric between the two leaders at a time of increased tensions over the fate of the 2015 Iran nuclear deal, as well as Tehran's role in the conflicts in Syria and Yemen. So if you're wondering, what did President Rouhani actually say? So he used his speech on Sunday to refer to President Trump's aggressive anti-Iran stance, telling him not to play with the lion's tail. And those remarks came after U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo earlier in the day likened Iran's ruling elite to a mafia and pushed U.S. allies to join them in stopping the purchase of Iranian oil products by the end of the year. So in his address to Iranian diplomats, Mr. Rouhani did suggest Tehran was open to restoring good relations with the U.S. as well as with regional rival Saudi Arabia. And the possibility appeared to be shot down by President Trump's response, as well as comments from Khalid bin Salman, who is Saudi Arabia's ambassador to the U.S., who wrote on Monday that it is encouraging to hear U.S. President Donald Trump make clear that we will not approach Iran with the sort of appeasement policies that failed so miserably to halt Nazi Germany's rise to power, we will all need to unite on a broader strategy to address the Iranian regime's destabilizing behavior. And I see your comment here on YouTube. Thank you so much, Ronald Taylor, who says Iran is protected by deep state. Trump has to stop playing and make a move before they get him. And then Orbit Korkra said Iran is not protected from Trump. He will destroy them. So, in saying that, he will destroy them, it then goes on and you ask, could the rhetorical spat escalate into a real one? So as of now, neither side is seeking a military confrontation, thankfully. And today, Iranian officials dismissed President Trump's threat as passive, but the head of Iran's powerful Revolutionary Guards later accused President Trump of trying to raise a psychological warfare. Now, Press Secretary Sarah Sanders told reporters today during the White House press briefing, which you saw us streaming earlier, or if you missed it, go ahead and head back a couple videos and you'll see it. So she said that the president's tweet was not designed to escalate tensions between the two countries. And she said, if anybody's inciting anything, look no further than to Iran. She adding that President Trump has been very clear about what he's not going to allow to take place. And Dr. Sanham Vakil, who is an associate fellow at the Chatham House in London, told The Independent, I don't want to downplay the comments, as escalation is always possible and hostile rhetoric can have serious consequences, but these remarks come in the context of U.S. domestic politics. And then he also said, on the Iranian side, the mindset from both more pragmatist and hardline politicians is that the Trump administration is so unpredictable that it may be better to wait out his term and hope he doesn't get reelected rather than to rise to any bait. And the Iranian rial, however, plummeted when markets open on Wednesday. And while President Trump's remarks were kind of hostile, the comments have also drawn comparisons with his meeting last year that threats to the U.S. from North Korea would be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen. So it's kind of been paralleled to those comments. And as you know, despite all of this, President Trump and Chairman Kim Jong-un met face-to-face for a historic summit on peaceful relations and the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula last month. Also, just got a comment on Twitter from Malik Gregerson and Malik. I'm sorry, you told me I pronounced it wrong earlier today, Malik. And he said, it's interesting that Iran didn't have a problem with the USA during the Iran agreement, but now that we have backed out of that bad deal created by the Obama administration, the U.S. is now the bad guys. Makes you wonder why they want a nuclear weapon so badly. Don't mess with the U.S. A good offense is a good defense, a well-known strategy in football. Yes, thank you so much for your comment, Malik. I completely agree and am very thankful for that. So, and like I said, if any of you would like to DM me on Twitter, please let me know. Wow, and it looks like I got a news tip from someone who does not want to be named. Let me just make sure this is current real quick. Yes, so this did happen today, and it is from mirror.co.uk. And let me see if I can show you guys this video real quick. It is footage in Greece where forest fires have killed at least 20 people and more than 50 injured as the apocalyptic inferno ravages countryside near Athens. Let me see if I can get this video to work for you guys in just 1 second. And we just got a $19.99 donation from Rick Moore. Thank you very much for that. Really appreciate it. He said, "Thank you for your efforts. I enjoy the programming. Finally, thank you for exposing the leftist child molestora," which will be in the next broadcast right after this one tonight at 9 o'clock Central Time. So stay tuned for that. And let me see. I apologize. It doesn't look like this video is pulling up, but I will tell you guys what happened and then show you the picture after. So like I mentioned, at least 20 people have been killed and more than 50 injured in the huge forest fires in Greece. And the fires raged uncontrolled in several places across the country on Monday, destroying homes, disrupting major transport links, and sending people fleeing for their lives. Authorities were also investigating reports that up to 10 tourists, possibly Danish, were missing after heading out on a boat to escape. And the Prime Minister, Alexis Tsipras, cut a short visit to Bosnia because of the crisis, which has stretched Greece's firefighting abilities to full capacity. And the Prime Minister said, "We will do whatever is humanly possible to control it," but he hinted that so many fires at once needed further scrutiny. And he said, "I'm concerned at the simultaneous outbreaks both east and west of Attica." And Greece said that it needed air and land assets from its European Union partners, as the Attica region was engulfed in some of the worst fires the country has seen since 2007, when dozens of people died. And Cyprus has already offered to send fire engines and personnel. So fires were raging west of Athens in a densely populated area to its east. And in the eastern area of Raphinas, some people were stranded on a beach while boats were picking up individuals who had jumped into the water to protect themselves from the blaze. And Reuters witnesses reported seeing a hillside of homes gutted by flames east of Athens, and a local mayor said he saw at least 100 homes burning and 200 vehicles. Now, Greek authorities, of course, urged residents of a coastal region west of Athens to abandon their homes as the wildfire burned ferociously, closing one of Greece's busiest motorways, halting train links, and sending plumes of smoke over the capital, and the cause is still unknown. So wildfires are not uncommon in Greece, but a relatively dry winter created the tinderbox conditions. And the army was actually drafted in on Monday afternoon to help fight the blazes, and some flights, many landings, were disrupted on Monday afternoon by low visibility and diverted elsewhere, air traffic controllers said. So authorities were looking for a vessel of up to 10 individuals who had fled the Rafina area on a boat and then called a Danish emergency number for assistance, a Coast Guard official said. And another 80 people were rescued after being stranded on the water's edge away from the flames. So authorities deployed more than 200 firefighters and 60 engines from across Greece to deal with this massive blaze at Kaneda, which is a small resort town about 35 miles west of Athens. En route, tens of thousands of drivers use daily to reach the Peloponnese, and a senior fire chief went on TV, state TV, to appeal to people to leave the area after some tried to actually stay in their properties. And he said people should leave, close up their homes, and just leave. People cannot tolerate so much smoke for so many hours. This is an extreme situation. And dozens of homes were thought to have been damaged or destroyed by the blaze, and some householders took up hose pipes to douse the fires while police assisted the evacuation of some areas. And the main Athens-Corinth motorway, one of 2 road routes to the Peloponnese Peninsula, was shut down and train services were canceled. Now, raging across the land around the Saronikus Gulf, the blaze ravaged tracts of pine forest and was visible for miles, and an ominous cloud of black-orange smoke hung over the Acropolis Hill and the Parthenon Temple in Athens on Monday afternoon. And live footage showed thick plumes of smoke hanging low over Rafina, an area east of Athens that has a population of at least 20,000 people. And Evangelos Baronos, who's the mayor of the Rafina Pic-Ermi area, said, "I personally saw at least 100 homes in flames. I saw it with my eyes. It is a real total catastrophe." And I'm going to show you guys some pictures just of the fire and of the destruction. You can see right here the house threatened by a huge blaze during the wildfire in Canada near Athens. And a firefighter reacting as a house burns down. So there were more than 300 firefighters there. 5 aircraft and 2 helicopters had been mobilized to tackle this extremely difficult situation. And then you can see just the strong gusts of wind helping that fire spread. And then a firefighting helicopter flies over an avenue during a forest fire in Neovasta, a northeast suburb of Athens. And of course, regional authorities declared this a state of emergency. And fires fanned by gale force winds raged through pine forest and seaside settlements. And 20 people in total, as of now, have been killed by the forest fires. So please keep their family and friends in your thoughts and prayers. If you are the praying type, that would be much appreciated. And then you can see a firefighter trying to tackle the blaze, but struggling. So thank you so much for your tip, anonymous YouTube viewer. And also, let's see, I got a couple more. Okay, switching back over real quick. So another tip from Malik Gregerson. He said, here's a news tip. Watchdog group Judicial Watch sued the DOJ concerning the FISA warrant issued for Carter Page and received over 400 documents, heavily redacted, but those documents prove that the FISA warrants to the FISA courts withheld the information, that the warrants heavily relied on the information from the dossier from Fusion GPS and paid for by Hillary Clinton and DNC. Thank you so much for that, Malik. I am going to check that out right now. So this was actually from a few days ago. But switching back over, So this is from judicialwatch.org, which is, of course, a very reliable source. So the president of Judicial Watch, Tom Fitton, made the following statement regarding today's release of 412 pages of documents about FISA, Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, warrants targeting Carter Page, who had been a Trump campaign advisor. And he said these documents are heavily redacted, but seem to confirm the FBI and DOJ misled the courts in withholding the material information that Hillary Clinton's campaign and the DNC were behind the intelligence used to persuade the courts to approve the FISA warrants that targeted the Trump team. Given this corruption, President Trump should intervene and declassify the heavily redacted material. And these documents were due to Judicial Watch yesterday, but were emailed around 5:30 p.m. today, and this was from just a few days ago, July 21st, 2018. And real quick, we got a donation for $19.99 from Ruth McAllister. Thank you very much. Really appreciate you asking if we have received our packages yet. We have not received those packages yet.
I'm going to UPS.
But Joe's going to UPS tomorrow, and he will check. So thank you very much, Ruth, again, for your donation and kind gifts. We're so excited to receive. She actually owns an outdoor store similar to Bass Pro Shops, and so she's sending us shoes and jackets and shirts and just different things so that we can be comfortable and look good at rallies. So thank you very much, Ruth. We're very excited for that. So back to the Judicial Watch. So the warrants are controversial because the FISA court was never told the key information justifying the request came from a dossier that was created by Fusion GPS, a paid agent of the Clinton campaign and the DNC. And the initial Carter Page warrant was granted just weeks before the 2016 Fusion GPS, a paid agent of the Clinton campaign and the DNC. And today's documents release supports criticisms by Republicans on the House Intelligence Committee, who released a memo that criticized the FISA targeting, and the memo details how the minimally corroborated Clinton DNC dossier was an essential part of the FBI and DOJ's applications for surveillance warrants to spy on Page. And the document production comes in a February 2018 Judicial Watch Freedom of Information Act lawsuit filed after the DOJ rejected a July 19, 2017 FOIA request. So the lawsuit is seeking three different things that I'm going to state to you guys, and you can see right here. So copies of all proposed and all final signed FISA applications submitted to the FISC relating to Russian interference in the 2016 election, allegations of collusion between people associated with the Trump campaign in Russia, and any known Trump associates regardless of context, and copies of all FISC responses to the above mentioned applications in which the court notified the FBI or Justice Department that it would not grant the proposed applications or recommended changes, and if any such FISC responses were provided orally rather than in writing, please provide copies of FBI or Justice Department records memorializing or otherwise referencing the relevant FISC responses. And then the third thing that the lawsuit is seeking is copies of all FICS orders relating to the above mentioned applications, whether denying the applications and certifications, denying the orders, modifying the orders, granting the orders, or other types of orders. And in April, the DOJ told the court it was processing for potential redaction and released certain FISA materials related to Carter Page and agreed to a production schedule for responsive records to be completed on July 20th, 2018. Wow, very interesting. Thank you so much, Malik, for sharing that with me. And like I said, if any of you have news stories that I haven't said yet that happened, in the last few days, or preferably today, but if it is in the last few days and it's something that I haven't already said on a nightly news recap or on another broadcast, then please share it with me on Twitter, and I have that up for you right here, right now, at Alyssa RSBN, so that you will be able to contact me. And also, I'm going to check Facebook real quick, just make sure there are no questions over here that I need to answer. Regina Tom said hi from Huntsville, Alabama. Hey, Regina. Hope you are doing well. Pamela Sword, hello from PA. And Nigello Constantine, howdy from NYC. Thank you so much. I love to see people watching from all over the place. It's so beautiful and really just shows how the internet can keep people connected. And a comment from Tom Locke about Iran. He said, Iran has always hated the USA, and that has not changed to this day. Obama sold us out to them, and if Clinton would have gotten into office, we would be worse off today. Wow, yes, thank you very much, Tom Locke. And let's see what else I have for you guys tonight. So some breaking news that happened actually in last night in Canada, in Toronto. There was a rampage that actually killed 2 and injured 13, and so the attacker was recently identified, and I'm going to show you guys a press conference with the police in a second, but first I'll kind of go through what happened. So the assailant has been identified as Faisal Hussein, and this is actually from CNN. So Monica Hutton of Ontario's Special Investigations Unit said authorities spoke with family members of Hussein, 29, who lived in Toronto and died during the incident, and the 2 people killed were just 10 and 18 years old, and police said, and the girl and young woman were among 15 people shot Sunday night in the city's popular Greektown neighborhood, Police Chief Mark Saunders said. And now, as the wounded recover from their injuries, investigators are still trying to understand what happened and what prompted the shootings. So authorities would not say whether Hussein was killed by police or by a self-inflicted gunshot wound. And a post-mortem examination is set for tomorrow, actually. So the melee started shortly after 10 p.m. Eastern Time in Greektown. And resident Andrew Van Eeg told CNN partner CBC that he heard the gunfire and looked out his window. There was a lot of commotion in the street, he said. I saw somebody come just down the sidewalk and shoot into Dimitri's restaurant. And I will show you guys a map of what happened, where it was, before the press conference. And thank you so much, the flag guy, saying, I pray for their families. And so you can see just the map right here, the shooting location on Danforth Avenue, where it meets Logan Avenue, kind of in the middle of Greektown. So Van Eek, who was one of the residents, described the suspect as a white male in his 30s wearing black clothing. And another witness told CNN partner CTV that he heard about 20 shots and the sound of a weapon being reloaded repeatedly. He said, and then I saw the carnage as I ran down the street here to kind of follow the gunfire. I saw at least 4 people shot. And witness Jody Steinhauer was dining with her family at a Greek restaurant called Christina's when she heard what she thought was the sound of firecrackers, and then she was told to run to the back of the restaurant. And she said, we started to hear people scream out front, and the crime scene stretched over a distance, according to the police chief. And witnesses were taken by buses to multiple offices to speak with investigators, and police asked witnesses or anyone with information to contact authorities. And yes, I see your comment. The British Patriot, thank you very much for that, who said the shooter was ID'd. They're claiming mental illness. I haven't run into that yet, so if you have a link to the article that says that they're claiming mental illness, please share it with me right here in the chat. So the mayor, John Troy, said he was outraged that someone has unleashed such a terrible attack on our city and people innocently enjoying a Sunday evening. And he said, we have a gun problem in that guns are readily available to too many people, and the police are doing their best, but they're operating under extraordinarily difficult circumstances to deal with these guns, and we'll see what they conclude from the case, but it's evidence of a gun problem clearly. So on Friday, the city actually rolled out a program to put 200 more officers on the streets of at-risk neighborhoods between 7 p.m. and 3 a.m. to combat gang violence, according to CTV. And it was not immediately clear whether Greektown was included in that program. But earlier this month, CTV reported that by July 8th, there had been more than 200 shootings in Toronto and 26 fatalities. And it said during the same time period last year, there were 188 shootings, resulting in 17 deaths. So it said the extra staffing was intended to last for 8 weeks, which after police would reevaluate their needs. And in total, 15 million Canadian dollars or 11.4 million US dollars had been set aside for efforts on curbing gun violence in Toronto, with some money going to community programs aimed at stopping young people from joining gangs, CTV quoted Tory as saying. And now before I get into the rest of that, I want to show you guys that press conference real with the police. Okay, just making sure audio is good.
At approximately shortly after 10 p.m., what happened was the police responded to a 911 call for sounds of gunshots. Upon police arrival, there was a suspect who police had identified as suspect at that particular point in time. There was an exchange of gunfire, and I can tell you right now that as a result of this, approximately 15 people have been hit with gunfire. 14 are not let me take that back. There are 15 in total. One is the alleged suspect. The other 14 are victims. I can tell you that one has succumbed to their injuries at this point in time. A young girl is in critical state right now, and the other 13 are in hospital and being treated. We have, other than the shooter, we have a young lady that is deceased right now, and we have a young girl, I believe 8 or 9 years old, that is in critical state at this point in time.
We're following breaking news from Toronto, Canada, where several people.
So anyways, you could hear him talking about those in critical condition and those that are now deceased. So please keep the family and friends of the lives that were lost in your thoughts and prayers. Very heartbreaking situation, and something that was, definitely not fun to wake up this morning. I just kept seeing notifications about it and wondered if I would have to go live about it, but I didn't, so just, telling you guys about it tonight. But anyways, please keep those in your thoughts and prayers. So this neighborhood, and I will go back and show you guys a picture of it real quick. Again, this map. So this neighborhood, Greektown, very appropriate for the name, is known for its Greek population. And some actually expressed shock that it was the site of the shooting rampage. And one witness said, "It's the street where families come. They were all out tonight walking, having their dinner. It's just unbelievable in this neighborhood." And the Greektown Business Improvement Association says the area, also known informally as the Danforth for its Danforth Avenue location, is North America's largest Greek neighborhood. And its website says visitors will experience a neighborhood alive with interesting restaurants, boutiques, shops, markets, cafes, and a host of wonderful experiences. And so it was just a shock that it, happened in that area. Many people were very surprised, but a lot of times, shootings do happen in unsuspecting areas where people will not expect them to occur. So according to a 2016 census, Greek was the second most commonly spoken language at home, behind English, in the Toronto Danforth City ward that contains Greektown. And 6% of the ward's immigration population is Greek-born. So Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau offered his condolences to all those affected by the catastrophe in Greektown. And I'll show you guys what he tweeted out. He said, "My thoughts are with everyone affected by the terrible tragedy on the Danforth last night in Toronto, and may the injured make a full recovery. The people of Toronto are strong, resilient, and brave, and will be there to support you through this difficult time." So that is all for that story, but I will let you guys know if there are any updates. And it looks like I just got a few messages on Twitter. Yes, one from Jeff, or at Sippy Guy on Twitter. He said, "Guns don't kill people, people kill people." That is true. Thank you so much, Jeff. And then Malik said, "How can an inanimate object like a gun be a problem? You have to pull the trigger in order to fire a gun. Why do people focus on the gun as the problem instead of the person pulling the trigger as the problem? A gun is just like a computer, and it will just sit there unless you turn it on." Yes, that's very true. Thank you, Malik. And switching over right now to our next story. So it came out today, actually, that a federal judge in Virginia agreed to postpone the trial of President Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort. And now this is from NPR, National Public Radio. So the initial phase of the jury selection is still set to get underway this week in Alexandria, just outside of Washington, D.C., but Manafort's trial itself now isn't scheduled to begin until next week on July 31st. And the federal judge, T.S. Elias III, told the parties in a hearing that he recognized the equities and good reasons on both sides of this motion and would agree to Manafort's lawyers' request for more time. And he also unsealed the names of 5 witnesses who have been granted partial immunity from prosecution in exchange for their testimony in Manafort's case. And documents in the case so far didn't give much of a suggestion as to what the witnesses might be called upon to tell the jury. And Justice Department Special Counsel Robert Mueller has charged Manafort with alleged tax fraud and money laundering connected to the work he once did for clients in Ukraine. And Manafort is also facing a separate federal prosecution in Washington. His trial is set to take place there later this year. So there are some government witnesses as well. Ellis also ordered the government today to turn over its full list of approximately 30 witnesses by the end of the day. And when asked about amending the proposed written questionnaire for prospective jurors, he said, "I'm not moved." He said, "We're not going to get into how people voted. Of course, people can be fair no matter who they voted for." And the judge said he intended to get a jury seated expeditiously and then keep the process moving once it had begun following the new start date. And he said, "I'm not going to let this trial drag on. I'm not in the theater business." And also, since I haven't mentioned it yet, for those of you who are not familiar with Right Side Broadcasting Network, welcome. We're so thankful to have us here for you, to have you here, watching us tonight, and we're thankful to be here for you and just share the news with you guys. And also, we do travel to political rallies all around the country. And the next one is actually July 31st in Tampa. I saw some of you commenting about that during the beginning of the stream, and I haven't said it yet, but that is the next rally we'll be going to. So we're really excited for that. But as you can imagine, it is very expensive to get there. Each rally is at least a minimum of $5,000, depending on how many crew members we send. And we always send between 3 to 5. Having more people makes it more fun, just to be able to have more personalities there and to kind of take turns. And so anyways, we are not able to go without your support. And so if you want to keep us on the air and you want to see us just really show the crowds at these rallies, please, if you are willing and able, you can actually donate and help keep us on the air, because we are 100% donor supported. So there are 4 different ways you can do that, which I'm going to go through real quickly with you guys. So one of them, you can actually donate right here in the YouTube chat, in the super chat. You just click on that $sign. And yes, I see one of our great moderators, Guinevere, commenting, POTUS rally and RSBN will be there showing the crowd. Yes, we will. So anyways, you can donate right here in our $sign, in our YouTube chat. You just click that $sign to help us get to these rallies. Now, YouTube does keep about 30% of that, and we're able to keep 70%. But it's still a really fun way to donate, because, it comes up in a bright color with your name, and you can type a message, and I share that with the whole world. And also, I'm going to show you guys real quick on our website the different ways you can donate. And we are able to keep a little bit more of that on our website. If you're going through PayPal, we get to keep about 90% of that. So I'm pulling it up for you right now and switching over. So you can go to our website and you can see this top red bar right here. There's the 4th tab over. You click donate and you can see the links. Here is the one to PayPal if you're paying with a PayPal account or a debit or credit card, and you can just enter the amount. Super simple. And then your card information, your billing address, and of course your contact information. So definitely a safe and secure way to pay. And also, if you want to receive, fun stuff, if you want to be a monthly donor, you can go to patreon.com/RSBN. You can see right here, that's Patreon with an E, and that link is accessible through our website as well. So you can get fun stuff like hats, t-shirts, pens, pencils, and mugs, just like this one with our logo, Right Side Broadcasting Network. And so super cute, super fun. Just a way to think of us throughout the day, and remember to watch our different programs. And there are different levels on Patreon as well, just going all the way from the entry level down to all access. Now, I'm not going to go through all of those with you, but you can definitely check it out yourself. And if you're not comfortable paying online, we completely understand and respect that. And you can also mail in a check directly to us with a little note if you want. Of course, you don't have to, but we really appreciate that. It makes it very special. And so you can see our address right here is 1550 Opelika Road, Suite 6, Box 344 in Auburn, Alabama, 36830. And I see that Guinevere says she is using her RSBN mug right now, and I just finished using mine. So yes, that I showed you guys. Thank you so much, Guinevere. And wow, we just received $10 from QAnon. Great name. Thank you so much for that. Who says everything is going to be just fine. Just enjoy life. Thank you so much for that, Q. Really appreciate your donation and support. So like I said, those are the different ways that you can donate. And we are not able to do it without you guys. You are the heartbeat and the soul of RSBN. So thank you for always viewing and always supporting. We really appreciate you guys. And also just wanted to thank our other moderators in the chat room right now. Webster Cal is here. Guinevere is here. And Real Frank in Florida. And let's see who else. Looks like we have some sponsors as well. Christopher Milner and the Millers. And the Wicked Truth X. And who else is in here? Carl Peterson. So thank you to everyone watching. Really appreciate that. And I have a couple more stories for you guys before we wrap this up. So tomorrow, on Tuesday, House Republicans are going to be briefed on the new tax proposal. And this is from Reuters. And wow, we just got a $19.99 donation from Sanford Babbitt. Thank you so much for that, Sanford. Really appreciate that. Who said for the rally fund. We will definitely put it towards the rally. Thank you so much, Sanford. So the Republican tax chief in the U.S. House of Representatives said he expected to outline for other Republican lawmakers on Tuesday a new tax package intended to make 2017 tax cuts for individuals and many private businesses permanent. Now, Representative Kevin Brady, who you just saw last week, kind of briefing everyone on what they were going to talk about with President Trump, he chairs the Tax Writing House Ways and Means Committee, and he said today that the rollout would set in motion a weeks-long period for House Republicans to offer feedback, setting the stage for further action as early as September. And widely seen as an election year initiative with little chance of becoming law, the proposal could help drive Republican voter enthusiasm in the November 6 elections that will determine whether Republicans or Democrats control Congress for the next 2 years. So it's super important. And Brady is billing the initiative as an update to last year's tax overhaul, dubbing it as a tax reform 2.0. And Brady told reporters, "Tomorrow we will lay out the outline of our 2.0 with our House Republicans, begin a series of listening sessions among the conference on this, gather their input throughout August, and be ready to move forward, advance in September," Brady told reporters. So Republicans in the House of Representatives are expected to meet for their weekly caucus meeting early on Tuesday. And Republicans from Brady's panel met with President Trump last week for what lawmakers described as a discussion that unified White House and House Republican goals for new tax legislation. And such a bill is unlikely to succeed in the Senate, where Republicans would need help from the Democrats. Now, tax cuts for individuals and for companies organized as pass-through businesses, including many small mom-and-pop firms, are set to expire after 2025 under the bill that President Trump signed into law last December. And I see your comment here, Robert Justice, that is great, who said, "Make tax cuts permanent." So those temporary cuts are projected to add $1.1 trillion to the federal deficit over the next decade, at a time when the nonpartisan Congressional Budget Office warns of a rapid rise in the federal debt. And Brady said the new proposal would not include any additional provisions to pay for the tax cuts. And the proposal is also expected to include incentives for retirement savings, according to lawmakers. So also today, a Republican lawmaker introduced a bill calling for a carbon tax, and this is from Reuters as well. So a Republican lawmaker in the U.S. House of Representatives introduced a bill on Monday calling for a carbon tax, saying he hoped the legislation would, at the very least, renew a U.S. debate on climate change that has languished for a decade. And Representative Carlos Curbelo, who is a member of the House Tax Committee who faces a tough re-election bid in Florida, said the legislation, called the Market Choice Act, enjoys a small but growing support among Republicans who he has said have been known for their knee-jerk rejection of carbon tax proposals in recent years. And the measure is sure to fail in the Republican-controlled House, but Curbelo, speaking at a Washington forum on Monday, remained upbeat. And Curbelo said, "I truly believe that one day this bill or legislation similar to it will become law." Also, we just received a $15 donation from Christopher Wilner. Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. And talking about the Canada shooting earlier that I was talking about, he said they quickly label every shooter mentally ill. That makes people with real mental illness even more understood. Thank you very much for your donation, Christopher. Really appreciate that. So also, Curbelo said it will spark an important debate about investing in our country's infrastructure, the way we tax, and what to do to protect the environment. So the bill garnered at least one Republican co-sponsor, Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, and Curbelo and Fitzpatrick are among 17 House Republicans who in March 2017 introduced a resolution that acknowledged the negative impact of climate change. And Curbelo actually said that his legislation would exceed the carbon reduction goals of the Paris Climate Change Pact by imposing a levy of $24 per metric ton on industrial carbon dioxide emissions beginning in 2020 and rising annually. And it would replace existing taxes on gasoline and aviation fuel and put the point of taxation on coal mines, refineries, and gas processing plants. And President Trump announced his intention to withdraw the U.S. from the Paris Climate Accord in June 2017. And Curbelo actually said that the tax would generate $7 billion in revenue over a decade for infrastructure investments. And the bill would also impose a moratorium on U.S. regulations governing greenhouse gas emissions. So the legislation represents a small but meaningful shift for Republicans on climate politics, driven in part by candidates in swing states like Florida, where hurricanes and floods make no distinction between Republicans and Democrats. And we also just received a $20 donation from Top Secret Pancakes, who said for MAGA rally fund as well. Thank you very much, Top Secret. What a blessing for us, and what a fun name you have. So going back kind of to this Republican introducing the bill calling for the carbon tax. So many Republicans actually supported a climate bill 10 years ago, but it died in the Senate, and since then, Republicans, including President Trump, have stood firm on two positions: cutting taxes and opposing climate legislation. And last week, the House voted 229 to 180 to approve a resolution expressing the sense of Congress that a carbon tax would be detrimental to the United States economy. And Curbelo and 5 other Republicans opposed the measure, and a 7th chose not to support the resolution by voting present. And Curbelo intends to discuss his bill with the 86-member bipartisan House Climate Solutions Caucus, which includes 42 other Republicans. And he said, "We're seeing trends in the House that should give us hope." And I believe that is the last story for my nightly news recap, because I'm going to prepare for the next broadcast a little bit about Hollywood pedophiles being exposed. So that is going to be very interesting. And it's actually by a great media personality and investigator, Michael Cernovich, who actually used to work for us a while ago. So we're really excited to share all of that with you all. And remember, if you have any questions, comments, or just want to get to know me a little bit, feel free to reach out on Twitter at Alyssa RSBN, and I would be glad to connect with you guys. And remember to tune in just 30 minutes for that next stream. So thank you all so much for being here. Really appreciate it, and hope you have a great night and that you'll tune in again in just 30 minutes. Once again, I'm Alyssa Ashe with your Right Side Broadcasting Network Nightly News Recap.